going to do a presentation for you today on the importance of hierarchy. It's something that comes up quite a lot with our sort of projects that we do at Razor, and I've sort of been through this talk in many different scenarios in workshops and stuff like that, and I think it's quite important that so we get some visibility on how it can affect different parts of the business and other businesses. So obviously hierarchy is known as a designery tool, but it can also be used from a development point of view, from structuring documents and all that sort of stuff. So for the eagle-eyed amongst you and for the designers amongst you, you'll notice that the actual intro slide has been set up with the incorrect hierarchy. The narcissist in me likes this because obviously my picture's right there, full and center with my name, job title, etc. But the important stuff, the title is really small and down in the corner. So let's nip over and take a look at how we would restructure this. So before starting any design, be it a card, be it a full web page, you need to look at what components are involved in there and look at them from a hierarchical point of view. So best way to do that is to list them out as I've done here. So all the different ingredients, I guess, that make up that component. And then you need to add some weight into them. So in the current context, the title of this presentation is obviously the most important. What am I talking about, basically? And then comes subtitle, and then all the vanity metrics comes after, so they get a lower weighting. So if we rejig those in order, this is how it should have been, essentially. So let's change that up now. So the titles in the top left, and I'll go into that in a bit in the presentation, about how users and people actually read documents, pages, books. It all comes from when we were children and we read a book left to right. So let's skip this on. So what is hierarchy? So hierarchy, I like to compare it as being quite similar to grammar, right? If you mess up grammar and you don't put stuff in the right order, it can have the complete opposite meaning of what you're wanting. So in this case, I like cooking my family and my pets. In the right order, with the right grammar, it's I like cooking my family and my pets, which can make a huge difference. Obviously, this is an extreme example of this, but you sort of get the idea. So there's a lot of these sort of exercises that you'll see online if you're reading up about hierarchy, and there is a psychology behind this, the way that you read and the way that you understand information on a page. So I'm going to guess not everybody's the same, but most people will have read this section in this sort of order. So you start with the biggest piece of text there, and then you work down using contrast. So the eye sees the contrast underneath and sort of flips about. Then the text at the bottom is always sort of secondary. So you always sort of read that last. So let's have a look at how that would look in a real world. So for example, this would be like a blog post or something like that. So you'd have the big title at the top, your subtitle underneath, some key CTA messaging about getting in touch to learn more. At the top, you've got Razor Business Insights. It doesn't stop you from finishing the article. It's not imperative to the design, but it's there as an additive, basically. So again, using the same formula, so it's looking at all those pieces of information and it's adding a weighting to them, what's most important, and you can sort of see that there, and that's the way that you want the eye to perceive it. So let's look at some examples of hierarchy. There's a lot of different formulas and ways of looking at how you structure hierarchy on a page. My favorite is called CRAP. Which is an anagram for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity, which was coined by Robin Patricia Williams. I've sort of shrunk that down for this presentation to just CPS, which doesn't have the same ring to it, but contrast, proximity, and size. So I'm going to break those down in a second. So here we have contrast. In this form, this is a simple file upload sort of component. You can tell instantly that this is positioned on the left-hand side to dictate, so project files, it's to dictate what section you're looking at. Then you see that the uploaded documents have this border around them to indicate that they've been uploaded, but also the title of each of these is in bold, and it's also the contrast between that and the sub-data, so like 200 kilobytes, it's not as important as the title. It's something that you might need reference to, but it's not something that is the be-all and end-all of using this. So the next up is proximity. So using white space to separate different sections. So you can see in here we've got the importance of hierarchy as a title, and then you've got that subcopy, but then you have some space in to indicate that it's part of a separate section, and it's a nice way of guiding the user's eye. If those were two were like butted together, then you'd probably have a little bit of a hard time understanding where the section starts and when it ends. And for the developers amongst us, particular front-end development, obviously this is really important, is understanding the size and the scale in web development, in design in general. So we have the importance of scale. That's why in text documents, in CSS, HTML, we look at our scalings, because we want, not only from an accessibility point of view, but from a usability point of view, from that UX and understanding what is the most important thing on that page when we're reading it. So the psychology of hierarchy. Now this one's quite an interesting one. I've sort of been through and gone through how it would look and how it looks in theory, and I wanted to show a practical side of it. So this is a blog post I did back in 2021. It's a really good blog post. I'll leave a link somewhere so you can view it. But we followed the same sort of principles in this, and I'll go through with you what those are. So this may look like a heat map that you're familiar with. This is actually an eye view. So we used eye tracking to track where your eye first hits the page, what it's looking at. And as you can see, there's sort of this red blob right to the side of blue. That's where my eye landed on the page. So starting from left and then focusing all the way down. But you can see where I've hovered over. So I've obviously hit the title straight away. Razor Insights, not even looked at that. I've looked at the vanity metrics. And then there's that gap which sort of indicates proximity between the top bar and the GIF underneath. So that's giving me space to sort of digest what the title is, what this blog post is going to be about, and then get straight into it. Some other interesting facts from it as well is understanding the dwell time. So how long have I been staring at this piece of content, essentially? So obviously there's quite a bit of content up in the top, so dwelled on that for about 6 seconds. And my first view from flicking to the left to hitting that content in the middle was about 1 second. As you can see on the excerpt, the actual dwell time was quite low. It's not as important as the content. People read that title and they want to get straight into it. We know about how well videos, GIFs and animations do on websites already. So you can see that the dwell time on this was 3.74 seconds, which is great. If it was an image, you'd probably look at it briefly and get straight onto the content. So do's and don'ts. I really feel bad for Ling's cars because I bring this up all the time. From a marketing point of view, this site is excellent. I think I found it maybe 5 years ago, and I feel like I show it to everyone whenever I talk about design. However, it's a really bad example of hierarchy. As you can see, there's so much to look at. It's not it's all congested. It's not in its own defined sections. And I thought for experiment's sake, I'd do a bit of an eye tracker on it, and it's a little mad. My eyes were everywhere, and I think if anyone looked at this site, their eyes would be everywhere. There's so much to see, but none of the content that matters, the prices of the car, anything like that gets seen. It's all this just crazy floral pattern, the strange GIFs, etc. So that's something that, I'm not saying any of us or anyone's going to ever design a website like this, but it's just something to keep in mind as a bad thing. Just don't. On a good side, so you see with like Shopify and companies like Stripe, they're creating these really nice considered designs where for checkout, they keep their primary information on the left and their secondary information on the right. So this is called an F pattern, and this is how we predominantly read a page. So it's one horizontal movement across the top. Then we get to the end as we would on a page, and we drop down and then start digesting the rest, which is a secondary movement in the middle, which is why it's indicated with this sort of F here. Another good example is this MoMA site. So you have big blocks of content. There's not a lot of sort of unstructured information. You've got text on the left, then you've got an image, and this format is known as a Z format. So it's not as common. It's more for stuff that's less informative, to prioritize like call to actions and stuff like that. And it works really well. So in this case, you read this title here on the left, go over to the image, back down to the left, and then back over to some more text. So really functional. So to wrap it all up, in conclusion, there is lots of ways of structuring your information on a page. Best way to do it is just give it a weighting, as you normally would do with typography. Really think about what's most important when you're looking at a layout or a component, and just try and work in some of those different things. You can follow the CRAP formula, or you can follow your own, as long as you know that there are a few key things to actually grabbing users' attention. And I'd highly recommend using some of these eye tracking softwares, because obviously, seeing how your users actually would review a website is really, really important. Same with graphic design and everything in between. So yeah, thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.